everyone. My name is Sofia Lekka Angelopoulou, editor of designboom magazine, and I'm very happy to have with me on stage 8 creative studios from Hong Kong who are currently showing their work at Hall 6 at the Hong Kong Design on Stage Pavilion designed by Tsang of Lab. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please do. And I'm very happy to welcome Keith Chan, interior designer and founder of Hintegro. CLM is not here yet. Dennis Cheung, architect and founder of Studio RYTE. Fun and Kevin Mak, co-founders of streetsignnhk. Kwanho, co-founder of MLKK Studio. Bodin, co-founder of Yellowdot. And Charlotte Lafont-Hugo, founder and director of BEAU Architects, and Monica Tsang of Monica Tsang Designs. And we're here to discuss Hong Kong's emerging design scene and the evolving landscape. So I would like to open up with a question around how, as locals, you think Hong Kong's design landscape has evolved in recent years, and your take on that. Whoever wants to start.
Yeah.
Bodin?
So I think when we were growing up,
CLM. Very nice to meet you.
So Hong Kong was like the epicenter of production for the world, creating all kinds of gadgets and plastic goods, and it was famous for exporting all the goods to all the European countries and also US. And now at this stage, so it's changing, and when we grow up now, everything is more eco-conscious, and I think we're taking the same spirit of like the commerce, the production, and the same skill sets to evolve it into working with eco materials and reusing materials to make another wave of creativity and design.
Monica?
For our professional, we are special in design tableware for hotel Michelin-star restaurant, such as at Peninsula Hong Kong, Four Seasons Japan. In the past, people more focus on the food. Nowadays, food presentation is also very important. We will have more design elements on the tableware to enhance the customer's dining experience.
Anybody else wants to add in? And what do you think, in your opinion, all of your studios are based in Hong Kong, is that correct? What do you think, in your opinion, makes the city's creative scene so unique in what kind of elements or?
I think our creativity is grown up from long time ago by limitation. You know, Hong Kong was a colony of UK. And so we mixed the culture. And at that time, back to 1950, after the war, and our grandparents are very, very poor. They don't have any resources. So that's why at that time, for example, terrazzo in Italy or France is a very common material. But after the war, and they spread to China, to Shanghai, to Guangzhou, and after the war, the people migrate from China to Hong Kong, and they bring the technique, and they brought the material to Hong Kong. And in the 50s, our Tonglao, kind of very old style concrete building in Hong Kong, after the war, they built a lot in Kowloon and Hong Kong Island. And we use those material as a cheap material, but at the same time pretend to be a marble. So we have a curvy rail of the staircase. It becomes a very unique style of Hong Kong architecture or interior design. I think this is from the limitation after the war and also from the colonial style. And I'll give you another example is the green color of Hong Kong. Many people think we use a lot of green in like a tram, train, or even the fence on the street. Some rumors that because the green paint is actually the leftover after the war because they paint the tank, the fighter with green. And then at that time, UK sent all the leftover paint to Hong Kong. And then it became somehow a unique style of Hong Kong. So Hong Kong we don't have a long history like Europe, but we have a very unique story after the war, and that's I think the unique situation how our creativity was born.
Yes, yeah, the constraints is definitely the most defining factor. And if you, for those of you that didn't know, Hong Kong's the whole waterway in the postcard is built on reclaimed land, so they actually fill up the water with stones and earth and build skyscrapers on it. So if they can come up with such insane solutions to building, yeah, that's kind of the spirit of creating something from limited resources and materials.
It's actually quite nice that you pick up the green color. In Hong Kong, after the war, green color was the cheapest to get. So we have a lot of things, including the tram, the ferry, all these, the city iconic stuffs are actually painted in green. In Hong Kong, we have actually very easy accessible locations of beaches and forests in Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong, we actually designed together with urban high-density environment and natural environment. So this is something that I think we are quite strong in, to be able to change different scenarios and different situations in a very quick time.
Yeah, to further address the density of Hong Kong, I think that is something the most unique in the world, that a lot of the shops are very competitive. They are just next to each other within a very narrow street. So that's one thing that inspired our project of streetsignnhk to look into the preservation and sustainability of the culture of the signboards and neon signs. And that's something that we, from our childhood became the main image of the city. And I think that's something disappearing these days. And that also builds up the whole visual culture here.
Maybe another very singular aspect of Hong Kong is, yes, you know, it's one of the biggest international airport in the world. But there is also a lot of fisher village. And this contrast between one of the most urban, the denser urban environment next to a jungle and some island and the sea around, all of these different facets and aspect of Hong Kong make it extremely unique. So it means that us as designer, we know that we have this, we have all the material around the world available, arriving through this international harbor, but we also can dig and find local craftsmanship, very special, and that I think it's it's very unique.
And somehow I think this kind of weighs in on the idea of conscious design as well, and how you are taking in those principles in your projects, and how we can actually see that in the pavilion here as well. The idea of, instead of using only new materials and the newest things available, you're kind of repurposing things that are already there, whether it's a city landscape or a material that is kind of gaining a new use through that. And I don't know if anyone wants to expand a little bit on that idea.
Maybe I can talk about a little bit. Our project exhibiting now is right on this idea. So as Hong Kong developed, like, you know, a lot of manufacturing facilities are based in Hong Kong in the 60s. Making a lot of cheap and durable things like laminates or like other stuff. But in the 80s, 90s, China started to open up, and then a lot of the manufacturing facility moved to China for cheaper labors or like cost-wise. So our project is actually using things that is left in Hong Kong. Like when the manufacturing facility moved, some stocks are still left in here, but they become like out of fashion, so no one can use it. And it started the idea of using those laminate folding chair, which is a traditional thing in Hong Kong, or household has one. And we were looking into it, and we find out that they still have the storage facilities and storing like 20 years old laminate unused, out of fashion, but they don't want to throw it away. So we have to find a way like how to deal with this situation, like not only laminate, but also other material that is previously fabricated in Hong Kong, but now they are moved out. So how we deal with that stock in a creative way and a modern design-ish way so that they can be really used, and also to tell the story of Hong Kong development throughout, like how it migrates or how we has been using these materials. So that's why we make the flooring as this laminate in a mosaic way, so to create this dialogue. And yeah.
Anybody else wants to? How do you see Hong Kong playing a role in the global design landscape? So how do you think the city can sort of position itself further, if at all, as a design hub, as a global design hub? What can an international crowd look for in Hong Kong somehow?
Right. So I think Hong Kong has a very unique position. Geographically, it has very, very close connection with a lot of factories in the Guangdong area. So we have in Foshan, in Shenzhen, in Dongguan, a lot of different kind of trades and different kind of factories. As Hong Kong people, we have a lot of international exposure. We can have the manufacturing capability back in China, in Dongguan and in Guangzhou. So we can manufacture and produce things in a much quicker way. For the design purpose, we can prototype and iterate our designs in a much quicker way, maybe perhaps than other countries or other cities. So for us, we have this advantage, and we can experiment new prototyping and new manufacturing ways of design.
In these 20 years, we have many design talents under the government support. And also, I agree that we have a lot of manufacturing in China, so we are easy to execute the idea easily.
I think it's the collaboration between the designers and the producers, because there's also a lot of creativity in the process and the material usage, and also even after you create the product, is the commerce side, and that's why we're here, to try to scale up each of our ideas so that we can reach an international audience. Because it's kind of something that people have to experience in their daily lives, whether it's a lighting or a stool or tiles, with eco-conscious theme, that you really feel the impact.
Hong Kong is really well known for its skyscraper, because it's very dense. The trend used to be you demolish a building to build a new one, a higher one. And today's the urban landscape, the city part, is extremely dense. It's dense enough to be connected, efficient, and sustainable in that way, in that density. But the scheme of yesterday, I demolished to rebuild, is not that, it's not working anymore. Economically, but also culturally, it's questionable. And so, okay, the project you can see at the pavilion is the transformation of a Tonglo building, like a building from the 60s, It used to be a shop and apartment that we transformed into an art gallery. But if you imagine this scheme at a larger scale, at the building, at the highlight, at the tower scale, this starts to be a pool for innovation in adaptive reuse. And that, I think, is how Hong Kong could exist and push its singularity in the global design scene. Another aspect, it's a little bit what I was talking about before. It's this dichotomy, or it's like this extreme contrast between the high density of the city and the jungle of it. And there is like few festivals now that are organized by some tourist departments to have some design intervention in the country park and the Fisher Village, and that's also another facet of Hong Kong that could be a little bit more developed.
The product I show in the pavilion is the door handle, made in Japan, actually, not in Hong Kong or in China. As a design hub of the Asia, Hong Kong play a very important role. Is that why the reason the Japanese company hired me to design the lock, the handle, is because, you know, Japanese economy is not that good after the bubble. And they want to find a way to export the product to all over the world, but limited by their languages or their traditional mindset. You know, Japanese, somehow they are very traditional, they are very conservative, and all the company, maybe they are the 4th or 5th generation, and they do not want to change the design because they think their grandparents will be angry. So, but now it's better because the now generation is younger. They have more exposure to the world. They know English, so they started to think about how to change the design. But at the same time, they have to keep the tradition. That's why they found that Hong Kong designer is a good role to give them advice, because we are somehow in the middle of the East and the West, old and new, and we can bring up more idea to the Japanese. And I always tell them not to give up the tradition, but they can open up a new line to have a new product. That's why I'm here to design their new product. I use their old technique, like 1,000 years of very low-tech sand molding kind of production. But we know how to tell the story. And we know how to tell the story to Europe, to the Western. And Japanese people, they think Hong Kong people are reliable in Hong Kong relatively compared to other country. And we have a good tax system, we have a good law system. And so when they want to go outside of Japan, they would find Hong Kong as a stepping stone because they trust us more. And we know the culture all over the world. And as these guys, lots of you guys are studying in the Western country, we know the cultures. I think this is the role of our design industry.
So do you find that Hong Kong sort of operates as a link between Asia and somehow the West because of your expansions and openings towards the West, either through studies or through collaborations? Do you find that there are a lot of other manufacturers from other Asian countries that reach out to you to sort of work as this in-between link that somehow...
Yeah, first of all, I want to respond a little bit. Like, I think we, in generally, very respecting all the culture and all the countries nearby, and not comparing like we are doing like better or something like that. But as in Hong Kong background, because we are born in like British background and also having Chinese influence now and at the heart of Asia, so we are a little bit more exposed to different collaboration, I would say, and be more flexible. As we mentioned about like Hong Kong is very limited in resources and a lot of restrictions, so that we are trained in a way to become like flexible and creative to solve problems. So that's make us maybe easier to communicate, and tackle problems in different perspectives. We can think about it in different perspective to solve something problem. So, as you mentioned, we have been also approached by a lot of Southeast Asia clients precisely because we are more exposed to international scene and also opportunities, so that we can share our experience with them to develop things that they want to approach to the global market. So I guess that is like a strength position as an international city in the globe.
Thank you. And going back to the idea of a city guide, for those that are not as familiar with the city, I was wondering if you could share a bit more about some of the most exciting or emerging design districts that you have in the city, how you think these reflect the evolving identity as a creative hub, or also like where your studios are based, if there is some kind of collaboration in a creative neighborhood.
In Hong Kong, as Bodin mentioned, previously we were a manufacturing hub. That was many years ago. And now there are a lot of industrial areas where a lot of boutique studios, galleries, and cafes entered and then transforming the whole neighborhood. That's happening in Wong Chuk Hang, where our studio is located. There are a lot of galleries, there are new shopping malls, there are a lot of design studios, architects, designers. They are showcasing a lot of their talents and designs. And people can travel around that area to explore. So it's not just about the natural scenery, because it's right next to the harbor and then it's next to the ocean park. It's actually very nice to walk around that area. Not just Wong Chuk Hang, but other type of industrial areas are vibrantly booming. That include some places are not that pleasant to walk around, but then once you are entered into the industrial buildings, they have large floor span, they have a lot of room, lot of space, and you find a lot of different things happening inside. It's almost like Ram Kuha's Delirious New York, but then inside those factory buildings, there are so many boutique things happening. And that's in a lot of different districts in Hong Kong.
I think Sheung is a very traditional district. People only know the dry seafood street in the past, but nowadays you can see antique shop, galleries, temple, traditional herbal tea shop all close together. It represents the mixed culture in Hong Kong.
Charlotte?
Yeah, because the project was on the screen, I was like, maybe you can go and have a look. It's always better to visit an architecture than just look at picture. But my city guide advice of Hong Kong would be to it will be more a journey, because the city is so efficient and again so faceted. You can explore many faces in just 12 hours, in just a day. I would start maybe at the Canary Farm, which is beautiful botanical garden in the mountain with like some old farm, and then it's I don't remember which year it was, but it used to be farm for Chinese people who were like needed to farm. Anyway, it's really beautiful, and it's like a treasure of nature. Then you can take a car and in like 40 minutes being in the most like big Apple store in the world, and then I would go maybe the afternoon in Tai Kwun, which is a renovation of the police station made by Herzog et de Meuron. And you can end your journey on a sky bar in the middle of Causeway Bay, looking at the city, and And yes, in very fast, because the city is so efficient, you can see many things.
Yeah, I think for my advice would be seeing the city as a very three-dimensional way. It's just like what just mentioned. Just try to find a rooftop or try to find a footbridge that you can see from a different, see the street, see the people from different perspectives. And that is something very unique in Hong Kong, that many of the business or studios are not on the ground floor. Many things happens on a higher level, a higher height, and that's something super unique. And even when you go up further in the top of the tower, when you look to the horizon, it becomes maybe sometimes suddenly all green again, because the mountain is just next to us and is next to the urban city. And yeah, basically to walk around in the three-dimensional, go up to the slope, go to the different levels of the buildings would be the most interesting. Yeah.
I don't have a very specific area to recommend, but what I liked Hong Kong most is the contrast between very old and very new. Like Sai Pun, the area that I used to have my retail shop there, there's a building, the unit is $5 million US, super expensive, but very small unit in Hong Kong. But at the same time, you just 30-second walk, you will see a wet market, which is a dirty, wet market just nearby. And you will see Michelin star restaurant in that district, but at the same time, very local bakery shop. And I stayed there for 2 years, my shop there. I found that people are very dynamic. We have a lot of expats living there because that district is very close to Central, which is the CPD. And they maybe by the train underground, they just 2 or 3 stations from Sai Pun to Central. But the history of Sai Pun was to accommodate the poor people back to 100 years ago. So this district became a very, very, very interesting dynamic. You will see Western people, Asian people, old people, young people, and they mix together. And somehow when you talk to them, they will find that they learn from each other. And they don't separate by different category. And Hong Kong is like this. All people can stay in the same very local area peacefully.
Whenever my friends from abroad come to visit me, I would bring them to Cheung, just mentioned. Cheung is a location where you can experience everything from the old to new, from the urban density to natural. So in Cheung, I would go walk from the downhill to uphill, and you would experience first the milk tea in Hong Kong. It's very delicious if you have tried. And then you will probably pass by some herbal tea stores. That is the Chinese medicine. We would use that to treat our yin and yang, the cold and the hot vibe. And then you would probably pass through one of the famous bamboo shoot juice, well decorated with a lot of old mosaic and old building materials. And then eventually you would be ending up for the day a cocktail. And in Hong Kong, we have one of the few cities to have a lot of cocktail bars where they won a lot of awards. So it's an experience that would be very contrasting, I would say.
I think after that, on the way, I think you should ride the Star Ferry to cross the harbor. You can see the whole skyscraper of the city, and it's still the traditional boats. It's all wooden and very, authentic and low cost as well. And it's something that is still protected. And it's like a little time capsule in this futuristic city. It's a slower pace of life. I don't think most locals take it. They like to rush in the underground. So the ferry is always an alternative way to get around. And then I'm more on the Kowloon side, and there was a place called Samshui-po, which is kind of more local. There's a lot of new design hub and also cafes opening up. But this next door to all the garages and kind of warehouse full of fabrics and gadgets. So you can find kind of materials for your next projects, whatever it is. It's very colorful and open.
Yeah, basically walking in Hong Kong is like you have to be prepared with different inspiration, but all at the same time. And I think that's the most interesting, just to walk on the street to experience all the fast and slow east and west kind of mix.
Hong Kong Island is a very good place to walk around. Especially some tips is the downhill area. The most is the small street. Something is very exciting because now the economy is changing. Most of the small shops can survive under this situation. So Hong Kong Island is a much concentrated area for walking. Yes.
I think if you are an architecture lover, Hong Kong is a very good place to visit, because in the same street you can see IMP, you can see Foster, you can see Sahar at the same time. You just take one photo, and then you can collect all the stars, architects. And when I was small, when I was young, studying design and architecture, I didn't know that we were so lucky. Not until the architecture student from Japan, they visit our school, and the first night they went out to take photos of the architecture. And at that time, I know I was in the lucky city, but I didn't know that.
And I mean, a lot of you talked a lot about this symbiosis of old and new, and you just mentioned a lot of Star Architects buildings, and there is a lot of development happening right now as well. Do you think that the idea of old and new coexisting is going to continue to be there, or do you feel like there's a lot of new developments that may be somehow, quote unquote, threatening this identity that makes Hong Kong so unique? How do you see the landscape evolving in that sense? Because we talked a lot about adaptive reuse as well, and how, but still, I mean, I think
most of the Star Architect tower, they are indeed in a cluster around Admiralty and Central, which is giving the famous landscape of Hong Kong. It's one part. It's not my favorite, but it's yours, so it's good. Also, we are like all, you know, with different ID tests, things. So I was actually amazed when I arrived 12 years ago in Hong Kong by the other building, the mundane building, the one no one knows, and the amount of it. All together, the density of all of this mundane building, and that's why maybe it's only me that see that in the future of Hong Kong. How do we transform them? What do we do with them? The Star Architect Tower, they will remain there, I imagine, and for sure, Hong Kong welcome new Star Architect to build new ones. But I'm more interested by the other ones. There is still very beautiful modern building also made by PNT Orang and all the Sino group development of the 70s. There is look. I change every month. My favorite building in Hong Kong change every month because you discover new things and then.
Yeah, so in Hong Kong, I think adaptive reuse is something that is coming up quite often these years. We started to look into our culture and also together with the scheme of funding, that we are able to really transform some old buildings into like totally different uses, like the PMQ or like police station, central market, etc. These are like coming up quite often now. But you can expect like Hong Kong is not going to stop that, and also creating a lot of new things. So we do not have the really strong restriction for all the buildings to be kept, because we don't have like 500 years of history. So a lot of things are really flexible and to be discussed like among the society, I think. So we will keep having new things, I think, every month or every the other day. But you will also expect the heritage is more getting the attention and being respected in nowadays, I think.
There is heritage and there is a carbon footprint of building, and somehow all of this existing concrete frame that there is already, with the carbon embedded inside, it can be reused. And yeah, I don't.
Thank you all so much. And I wanted to open up for some questions from the audience if anybody has anything to ask. Yes?
Hello, thank you very much for your talk. It was very interesting. I have not been in Hong Kong yet, but definitely in my bucket list. I'll go. That's why I have a few questions for you. I'm very curious if Hong Kong nowadays have a human as a central point of design or not in interior and architecture, or do you still find yourself very restricted and you cannot put a human in the first place when you design a space? Thank you.
As an architect, I think we are trained to put human in the first place in every project we did. So I think the personal experience of people, how to use the space, is the most important thing. Like, at least in my practice, like I would always put that in the first place. Even, for example, we are not doing like high skyscraper things like that, but even in our retail store, in our back of house, we always put how things that can please the user into our top priority, because that is how people use it. If you are not using it nicely or comfortably, your anger, your emotion will impact the others. So it's not something nice things to put into your design. You don't want to get your client angry. You don't want to get the staff angry. So that's something that I will put in mind, like how we design things like that.
In Hong Kong, you know, it is one of the most expensive city in the world. The property is even more expensive than New York or Tokyo. So the houses, not houses, I would say only apartment. Only super rich people in Hong Kong can buy houses. So if their apartment is that so small, you cannot imagine is around maybe 20 meters square for a family of 3 maybe. So as architect and designer, as our first job and first duty is to make them, like you said, to make them happy. Otherwise, such a compact city will make a lot of depression. So Hong Kong designer is I would say very challenging, because we have so much limitation time-wise and budget-wise. And this is, for many people, young designer or architect, they would think we are very bad. The situation and the environment is not very welcoming to design. But for me, I would say that this is a very good practice. I have some project in Tokyo, in Japan and in LA. When I designed those houses in LA, I would say, oh, suddenly a lot of freedom for me. And I think Hong Kong made us forced to be practiced. And we learn a lot of very interesting skill, not a lot of technique that can tackle time and budget and space problem.
Thank you a lot. I have a few questions more. One more will be related more to town planning. Would you define it as a very good example of universal design and accessibility or not?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes. For example, if you're a disabled person and you cannot enter buildings, you cannot go to metro, you cannot take public transport, you're basically locked in the district you live or even in your apartment, and always social helper, you can do anything. Or if Hong Kong has a tendency that everything is very accessible for any kind of person.
Around disability.
Yeah, so we have the, we call BFA, barrier-free access. So that is a mandatory thing for all the buildings nowadays. So perhaps the old building, the process like that. So whenever you have to renovate a building or build a new building, you have to pass through the statutory submissions, and that is the checkpoint that where you have to impose this barrier-free design. So now all the new building and the renovated buildings has to follow this in order to give the accessibility. But of course, like there will be some old houses like tenement houses that is not possible to install an elevator in front of that. So that part we are waiting, or like has to depends on the urban renewal process, where they will take down perhaps some of the old building or like go through the conservation process that is to inject the BFA kind of facilities. So I think in general, Hong Kong is very aware because we are on a hilly side. So we also experience that difficulties when we are still okay to walk around. But I think that is something important to be reminded in every city, I guess.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi, first of all, thank you. It was really interesting, and I look forward to go to Hong Kong. At first, I would say I feel like Hong Kong is a city that, with its history and culture, it looks like you guys are very adaptive and to all the changes and everything. And I was thinking about how do you adapt to the way of life in cities who are always getting faster and faster, with COVID slowing down kind of, and also thinking about how do you bring the nature into the city, how do you make sure that people get a mental health that is more stable, more calm, and also with nature in regard of the future, how do you think about less linear concepts of design, but more circular? That would be my questions.
A quick answer.
Flexibility. It means like do not design too precisely, to let a little bit of to let this adaptation possible. And it's true, like in Hong Kong, things change fast, but also people are used to that. They are used to adapt and change themselves things. So as a designer, somehow it's to plan as less as possible to give this blank page. I have like 2 projects in mind, not the one we show there, but for example, we made a public space in Tai Kwun, the one, the cultural hub made by Herzog and Meron. We did the revitalization of the Prison Yard. And to be honest, for the story, when we arrived, we were like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, you know, like there is nothing to do. This place is just perfect. Why do we need to transform it? Why do we need to... Anyway, we were questioning a little bit the brief. But then when we study it, we realized that there were like a little bit of discomfort in the way the bench were organized, but most importantly, the four heritage trees in the middle of the plaza were dying because the planters were too small. So they could not capture enough oxygen. So we were like, okay, maybe there is one thing to do in this beautiful space. It's just to enlarge the planter so the tree can breathe. And by enlarging the planter and redesigning it, we also reshape the seating in a very free way. It's just at this kind of concrete-based element that people can sit freely on it. And we didn't stop there. We were like, okay, the Jockey Club is one of the most rich developer in Hong Kong, rich enough to store all the salvage material of the renovation project in a storage near Sha Tin. So we visited the storage and picked up some stones there. So we made the bench with the recycled granite from the heritage site. And this, I think this is also a beautiful story.
Thank you so much.
Flexibility and
Unfortunately, we're out of time, so we're going to have to end this here. But thank you all so much for this wonderful conversation, and please go check out the works at Hall 6 at the Design on Stage. And thank you all for listening.